I am Pastor Ohm Prakash, and you are watching the YouTube channel The Other 167. I wish you all a blessed new year and hope you are keeping well. I invite you to come with me this morning to 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 9 and 10. It is not a very familiar passage in the scripture because it is buried beneath the piles and piles of genealogies, and it is lost among the thousands and thousands of names. But nevertheless, it is a very insightful passage in the Bible, because here in the midst of all those names and genealogies, there is a sudden focus on one individual in chapter 4, and his name is Jabez. I want your attention to him in verse 9. It says, Jabez was more honorable than his brothers, and his mother called his name Jabez, because I bore him in pain. Jabez called unto God of Israel, saying, Oh, that thou would bless me and enlarge my border, and that thy hand might be with me, and that thou would keep me from all harm, so that I might not hurt me. And the Lord granted Jabez his prayer. Someone asked Bishop Desmond Tutu many years ago. They said, Bishop, why do you pray same prayer again and again and again? Desmond Tutu, with tears in his eyes, replied, he said, if God can hear my prayer only once, it will make a great difference for this nation. In verse 9 and 10, we have a very brief introduction of this man who is an outstanding than others because he is a man of prayer. And his name is Jabez. Jabez was a man who not only believed in prayer, but he lived in prayer. His prayer is recorded for us as an outstanding example of a man whose life was changed by the power of prayer. Prayer of Jabez, by the way, is not some kind of mantras or some kind of magical spell that anyone can recite and get wealthy. Nevertheless, a man will always be an outstanding man who is a man of prayer and faith. In this 2-series sermon, I want you to discover who this person was and what a person he became by the grace of God. Then in our second part, we shall discover what he actually prayed for. Because I believe that unless we understand what kind of person he was, we will not understand why God answered his prayer. The Bible teaches us in James chapter 5 verse 16 that the earnest prayer of righteous man availeth much. And Bible also says that no one can please God without faith. Jabez was not just any man, and he did not just pray any prayer. He was a man who had a right relationship with God, and he made a sincere prayer from his heart, and God granted his prayer. God desires to answer your prayer and my prayer as well. But God also desires from us that we should be a man after his heart. We are given the first clue as to who he was along that line with these words, Jabez was more honorable than his brother. We do not know how many brothers he had, but this account says something more about the brothers than it does about Jabez, because it indicates something of dishonor that was attached to his brother's character. So the very first thing we know about Jabez is that he is of a family that had a bad reputation. He came from a bad family. And that reputation is recorded here for us to the extent that Jabez is regarded as remarkable exception to rather dishonorable family. The second clue to who he was is found in its name itself. The word Jabez means pain or sorrow. When he was born, his mother named him Pain or Sorrow. What a strange name to be given to a newborn baby. But the mother's remark was that I named him this because I bore him in pain and sorrow. That remark could, of course, be referred to the childbirth, the pain of childbirth, but I doubt that if that is what it means. But this indicates that something else was troubling the mother when Jabez was born. She was discouraged. She saw nothing ahead but helplessness and hopelessness, a bleak future. She saw poverty and difficulty coming on his way. And she named this baby Pain and Sorrow because that is what she was experiencing at that time. Then if you look a little bit closer into the text, you will notice something more is missing here that gives a clue to what was going on in that family. Although in the first 9 chapters of First Chronicles there are names of the heads of the family, so and so, the father of so and so, etc. But suddenly when it comes to Jabez, we find the name of his father was missing. Name of his father was not mentioned. His father's name is deleted from the registry of the temple. His father's name is dropped from who is who in the land of Israel. And that shows that he has no paternity, no inheritance, and no heritage. Furthermore, it is evident that he has a dissolute, irresponsible father whose name has been dropped from official records because he has lost his family property in some shameful way. Jabez's brother too seemed to have inherited some kind of family trait which was brought them nothing but shame. and he feels within himself a taint, a weakness from his heredity which has touched his brothers and brought them to shame and disgrace in the eyes of the community. He has no property. There was no way to start earning and living. No way to attain a position, to honor, or a status in a community. His future was bleak and hopeless. And in the midst of that, Jabez was brought up to be a godly man. I do not know how many of you will identify closely with Jabez, but it has been a tremendous encouragement to me. Story of Jabez tells us that Jabez had found an answer. And like psalmist, he knew where his help come from. His help comes from the Creator and the Maker of his universe. I think God's plan for you and me through this difficult time is to rest our faith in God. I believe that God's plan for you and me in this year to hold His hand and walk with me. I believe that God's plan for you and me in this new year is to talk to Him like Jabez talked to God. Please tune with me to the second part where we will discover His prayer for us.